the good, the bad, the ugly. So I'm saying that I don't want to go, we have limited time, so I don't want to go into all the other lucky factors. But I'm just saying from a macroeconomic point of view, the two big factors is that here's a negative trade deficit country, which is benefiting from a fiscal stimulus and a de facto monetary stimulus. I'll give you some pictures, actually just pictures. This is the good part, so good, bad, ugly. This is the good part. I don't know if you can read it. Morgan Stanley, anybody here from Morgan Stanley? Nobody. So we can say anything we want about them. Anyway, they introduced this word called Fragile Five. Have you heard of this word called Fragile Five? So this was back in June 2013. They said these 5 currencies or these 5 countries are extremely fragile, extremely fragile. These 5 countries were India, South Africa, Indonesia, Turkey, and Brazil. And because that time the rupee was racing to 69, the trade deficit, current account deficit was 5% of GDP. There was a lot of panic. The government of India and Reserve Bank were like slapping all kinds of controls, and import duty on gold went up to 10%, vagara vagara. Now, 2 years later, that happened in June 2013. We are now in September 2015. 2 years later, look at what has happened. The Indian rupee is down barely minus 5% or minus whatever. South African rand minus 22%, Indonesian rupiah minus 24%, Turkish lira minus 32%, Brazilian real minus 34%. And this data is from about 10 days ago, or maybe 7-8 days ago. So this is the good part. See, the Indian rupee has been incredibly stable by comparison. We want it, of course, to slip a little bit. I just told you that 4-5% is like a de facto monetary stimulus, but we don't want it slipping by 34% to cause panic among investors. So this is the good part. Just an example by way of a picture. This is the bad part. I don't mean these women, but you can guess what this is. Like, they're wearing some garlands made of some jewelry. So this is the inflation. Of course, symbolized by onion inflation, but we still are not able to get rid of consumer inflation. You might be reading in the press that how the chief economic advisor to finance ministry is saying that we are actually closer to deflation than inflation. Then various people in the government keep saying now there's enough time, enough inflation has come down, we need to have a rate cut, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is that consumer inflation is still not coming down. Consumer inflation is still 5-6% or higher. And in certain commodities, it's even very high. So this is the bad part. I'm not calling it the ugly part. The ugly part is this. I don't know if you read about this story there is a region in Maharashtra called Marathwada, or especially a district called Latur. They have quite a few districts. Anybody heard of Latur? Was, of course, about the earthquake, but that was 93. So the situation, we are just in August, end of August, September. The situation is so bad that these kids have to fetch water all day. There is no time for studies or for play. And these are kids, some of them are in 10th standard, who are supposed to be studying. But apparently, this is the situation right there, 300-400 kilometers from Mumbai. Even Mumbai city, the last bastion to face any electricity cut or power cut, or water cut, we have officially now, I believe, 50% cut, right, for commercial establishments and 10% cut for water, residential. And today, I think Pune city also has finally announced water cut. And we are just in the first week of September. We have to go until end of March or maybe June next year. So this is the monsoon aspect, monsoon dependence. So let me just, so the good, bad, the ugly, let me just quickly repeat. So the good part is the GDP, inflation, CAD data. You might say, if I said inflation was bad with the onion picture, why is inflation in this slide? But I think overall it's coming down. So this is a directional comment that GDP is on an upward trend, looks like. Inflation is on a downward trend, even though consumer inflation is still not below the RBI comfort thing, but it is downward trend. And current account deficit, which was 5% of GDP 2 years ago, is down to less than 1%. So for a country which depends on import, depends on earning its export dollars, so having a low CAD is a good thing.